Good evening and welcome back to part 2 of Contrarian Approaches to Networking and Finding a Job or Internship. We had some great conversation over chat from part 1 of our presentation, and we're going to launch straight into part 2. And before we do that, let me just remind you of where we left off. So we talked about a 2 steps ahead mentor, meaning finding people that are a little bit ahead of us in this process, be they perhaps in their senior year or in their first job, or perhaps even their second job, not necessarily vice presidents or founders or presidents of companies, but people that have some recent experience and can talk from their experience to tell us, recommend to us what to do and what not to do. So that can often save us a lot of time. Reinforce if we're going in the right direction, or perhaps help us to recalibrate and take a different direction and approach to our search as well. So always good to keep current, especially if it's someone that is in a similar industry, and they can give you perhaps some of the inside scoop about not just what are the current trends, but also advice on the search itself. In order to position ourselves for success, you also need to perhaps think 2 steps ahead. So not just get yourself a 2 steps ahead mentor, but to start thinking and finding out what is it that people in the industry are reading. So when I speak to them, I can sound like, I'm already aware. I have some sort of insider knowledge, if you like. I'm not starting from scratch, but I am somewhat educated, and I've taken the opportunity and initiative to educate myself on what are the main perhaps journals or the main blogs and websites that are read in that particular industry to keep up with industry news and trends, and what conferences they go to. Of course, in today's age, Zoom is your friend. You may remember in part 1, we talked about joining a professional association. If nothing else, and if you can get on the mailing list of some of those associations, they'll tell you some of the webinars that are coming up. Previously, you may not have had been able to access them, if it was a conference on the other side of the country or the other side of the world. But now you can attend potentially for free, and especially if there are topics that interest you, sometimes even if they're not of interest, but just to understand more about the industry and some of the key players, you may wish to sit in on some of those and communicate via chats or just get to know some of the other people in those Zoom webinars, etc. Another recommendation is to be memorable and show initiative. So when you send a thank you card or a holiday card, show, and this isn't just after an interview where you want to thank them for something specific, rather than just, a generic thank you for interviewing me. You want to be very specific in terms of, I particularly appreciated how you mentioned XYZ during the interview, and that really got me thinking about ABC. So you can definitely take those opportunities and use it as a chance to shine. So when you have a thank you meeting, when you have a meeting, I should say, with somebody in your network, take a moment to thank them, drop them an email, again, even a traditional thank you card if it's not going to feel awkward on the other side. Often it's very appreciated, right? If you happen to know if there's someone in your community, you know where they live, and you can drop a physical thank you card through their door, that can be really appreciated. Or even to send an e-card over email, that can also be really deeply appreciated and help you stand out and be more memorable. Holidays are always around the corner. We're a month away from Thanksgiving, and then of course there'll be Hanukkah a few weeks later and Christmas. So always good to start thinking about who can I add to my holiday list. Set yourself a calendar reminder so it pops up. You don't have to do much work. Except for perhaps writing them and sending them, but you don't have to sort of remember everybody. You can look in your your networking tracking lists, which we'll touch upon later, just to see who you've reached out to and who you might want to rekindle, and just give a quick update about what you've been doing recently, and perhaps what you've been doing as a result of their direct advice. Always important when you're speaking to someone about their company, again, certainly for an interview, but for informational interviews and networking, demonstrate if you can that you've done more than simply read the website. Certainly if you're a finance student, read the 10Ks, read what's available publicly about the company. That shows that you've done a little bit of homework, and speak to people at the company speak to people that you can find before, see what they're commenting online or on LinkedIn, see what the discussions are, and that will help you to say, you know what, especially when you come to write a cover letter, something which is bound to impress people much more than just saying, well, I see from your website that you value, let's say, for example, integrity and teamwork. Well, that's nice that you've read the website, but so have probably, hopefully at least 80 or 90% of the applicants. How can you stand out a little bit? How can you take a slightly different approach or a path less traveled? So one way is to ask people that work there for a conversation, to have really done your networking homework. And then in your cover letter, you can say, from speaking to people at your company, I've noticed how you truly embody the value of teamwork. I particularly noticed how, and then discuss, a particular project that they worked on as a team and how much it was valued and appreciated, and so on. So there's really a way to bring those into your written communications to a company as well. One more thing as we segue into the next slide in terms of positioning for success. We'll see a few more tips on the next slide. But think about how do I position myself? Well, if I know that some of the skills that I need, I haven't yet got them from my academic studies, or perhaps I'm on a totally different major. Maybe I'm a biology major wanting to go into finance, or a marketing major wanting to go on a pre-med track, right? So there's a lot of different variations. Other things that I could do, perhaps training my successor in lab work, or training them in a particular, the Bloomberg system or something of that nature. Can I ask to go on particular client meetings? Can I spend a day with a sales team? Is there a way, going back to diversification, that I can diversify my skills so that my resume will really be enhanced, and the future employer or internship provider can see, hey, you know what, they've actually done more. They've taken the initiative, so they stand out in that way, and they've done more than the sum of their academics, and that would usually be expected of an intern. So here we are. Start with the end in mind. Think about, again, as we refer to skills, what skills do my dream jobs require of me, right? What is it that they need me to learn? If I want to position myself to be in a particular job a year or two down the road, or a particular internship, what is it that I need to do this summer or this year in order to gain those skills, right? Maybe I need to take a course on Udemy or Coursera, or just do an extra piece of lab work, or something above and beyond. And I would also say that sometimes we say, we still don't have all those skills that are required. Sometimes maybe our dream job has some skills and we want to apply right now because otherwise we'll miss the window for this summer's internship, and we don't quite have everything on their wish list, everything on their job requirements. In general, if you have at least 80% of the required the requirements, and certainly if you have you only have 80%, or perhaps only 60 or 70% of the skills that they prefer you to have, or the experience they prefer you to have, don't let that put you off, right? Do continue. We encourage you to explore that and to potentially still put in an application. Don't just write it off. If it's your dream, there are ways to do that. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't pick up those skills after applying. There may still be several months or certainly several weeks until you have an interview, so you could see if you have an opportunity to plug some of those gaps in the interim. But do not pass them up just because you don't have every single one of the ability to check off every single one of their boxes. Look for roles that will provide you with, for example, rotational training programs. So in this, I was recommending, as I've recommended to several people recently, especially when they get to their senior year and they may not be exactly sure and they don't want to perhaps pigeon themselves in one particular program, that they look into rotational training programs. And for those that aren't sure what those are, feel free to reach out to us. And there is obviously some good information online as well. And don't wait till your interview to practice. Many people, understandably, they have a great strategy actually in terms of networking and applying for jobs. And then they actually get either lucky or just because of their hard work, they are called for an interview. And sometimes the interview, we have students who are sometimes called for interview the very next day, or perhaps the next week. So you don't want to suddenly panic and say, oh my goodness, I haven't had an interview in a long time. How do I even begin that process? So we encourage you to, along the way, as part of your strategy, build in time to practice your interview skills, again, either with a career advisor or with a program that I will introduce you to in just a couple of minutes. Actually, it's right here on the top of the slide. And it's called yeshiva.biginterview.com. So this is as part of our take home, be prepared and always be preparing to use yeshiva.biginterview.com in addition to scheduling a mock interview with us. But Big Interview has some great modules and a new AI feature, which I encourage you all to check out as well. For those that are wanting to be prepared and find out, some salary information, or even an idea of what are good questions to ask at interview and what's the culture of the company. Maybe after finding out and doing your research, you might actually realize, you know what, I'm not sure I actually do want to work in a company like this. So that's an important consideration, and you can potentially avoid you and the company a lot of headaches if you withdraw your candidacy or don't even submit your applications if you realize that this is not this sort of lifestyle or the culture that I want to embrace at this point in my life. So do your research. And of course, be organized and follow up. I referenced this in part 1. And as we draw to a close in part 2, I want to suggest that there are other networking and application trackers, but here's one that you are welcome to edit and organize for you, however works for yourself to organize your job search. Okay, our take homes continued. Be strategic. Connect with insiders to enhance your applications and create experiences for yourself that match the skills needed for your ideal job. So make sure that you can really talk about how your skills match up to your dream jobs. And if you can't, then that probably means there's a skills gap, which you need to then design a plan to fill in. And of course, insiders of the company can tell you there may be things that are not even on the job description or it could be an old job description. And there may be ways that you can enhance your application, because if you know, for example, that just as an example, the company is no longer using Java as much, they're switching to a different programming language, or there's a different way of that they're embracing their digital marketing or whatever it might be, then instead of talking about Java or talking about a particular type of marketing, you will want to perhaps adapt your language to show that you're very current on what is going on at this very moment in time at that company. And give back to your network. It's not all one-sided. Many students are like, well, I can't just take, and why would anyone even want to give to me? But remember, there's a sort of a wheel of fortune, if you like. There's this notion called pay it forward. Our alumni are incredibly giving to the Yeshiva community, certainly in terms of their time and being supportive of those that are interested in pursuing similar career paths. You'll do the same one day. And we want to encourage you that, however you do it, be that maybe there'll be part of your appreciation could be showing them something fun or interesting or something you came across that's relevant to their work. Or perhaps that there was an aside in your conversation and there was something that came up and you found a really interesting blog post on it. Or maybe they blog and you can comment on their blog. A lot of different variations, but there are ways that it doesn't have to be all one-sided. And finally, remember to step outside your comfort zone. So that's what we've been talking about in one way or another by talking about contrarian strategies. We've been talking about that for the last 10, 15 minutes. And what I would encourage you to think about is, even if you're a little bit outside your comfort zone, bit by bit, again, find models around you that have done it and emulate what they've done. and take that first step. You know, as they say, the journey of 1,000 miles, right, begins with one single step. So what can you do this evening to take that first step in going beyond your comfort zone? I'm going to end the slides in just one moment and take some more questions. Feel free to already, if you haven't already, put them in the chat and I will address them. And in the meantime, we invite everybody that is watching this evening to join our LinkedIn group, especially if you are part of the Yeshiva community. We are, that's the Yeshiva Big Interview link as well, which is free for all of our students. We subscribe on your behalf. So again, that is free access when you register using a YU email. For our current students as well, they can see resume templates and many other great resources on our Canvas page. And this webinar this evening, as well as almost all of our webinars and various other content is on our YouTube, is on Yeshiva University's YouTube pages. Feel free to reach out to me directly should you need to, or should you desire. I'd be happy to hear from you. My email is at the bottom, and so is the Career Center email. And with that, I want to wish each and every one of you a good night. And again, for those in the Yeshiva community, I look forward, I and the team, our team of Career Center, we look forward to welcoming you in the very near future back to campus. Take care and stay safe. Bye-bye.